Over the years, I've learned some tricks when it comes to filming myself playing the guitar and in general filming myself for YouTube videos. This is pretty much how I recommend that you do it. First, I find the spot in the room where I like to place myself. I like having some distance between myself and the wall to create some depth in my shots. I also like to think about what color the background is to create color contrast. A color close to my skin tone would create too little separation, so I try to avoid that. When a product is in focus, I try to do the same. For instance, a blue guitar goes well with a yellowish background and vice versa if the product is yellowish. Decide if you want to place the camera close to yourself or if you want to have a wider angle. You also need to decide how you want to sit or stand with your guitar in relation to the camera. I like to film myself playing a bit from the side with the headstock moving away from the camera. That gives a good overview of the guitar and the whole neck. I try to make sure that both my hands are in focus when I'm playing. It's best not to use autofocus for this, as the autofocus can decide to do whatever it wants to do when you are playing, so I use manual focus only. Use the camera you can afford. Personally, I hate smartphone cameras as they over sharpen the image just way too much. You can buy a second-hand DSLR camera and a good lens for way less than a new smartphone. If you already spent all your money on a phone with a camera on it, use that one. Try to find a third-party app that lets you take more control over the camera on your phone, like turning down the sharpness, for instance. Myself, I use a camera that is pretty much overkill for YouTube. It's an Arri Amira cinema camera, but I own it for my filmmaking business, so why not use it for YouTube when I already own one? If your camera doesn't have 4K, don't stress. I will show you a workaround later in the video. A good lens is very important. A good advice here is the Sigma 18 to 35mm. You'll probably find one used for your camera system. I often use that lens. I also have a kit of cinema lenses from Nightcore and they are awesome, but most of all I use old Canon FD lenses to get a softer and more characteristic look. I use one of those lenses right here. In order to create even more background separation in the image, using longer lenses can be the way to go. You'll most likely need to bring the camera back a bit to get the framing right, but you get more background blur using tighter lenses. I often go for a 35mm or a 50mm. But please remember, background blur isn't everything. I don't like that my background is too blurry. I like people to see what I have in the background as well. I often end up on a f-stop of 3.5 or similar to get everything of the guitar in focus with a slight out of focus area behind it. If you are not sure about f-stops and in general how a camera works, I would recommend that you spend some time learning that. It's really important. And lighting is also super important. To avoid back glare in your guitar or whatever product you are filming, it's smart to place the light source higher up. You'll need to experiment a bit to get this right. I use one key light that is placed next to the camera, right there, a bit above it. Depending a bit on the mood I'm going for, I'm also backlighting myself and or the object. A so-called rim light can help bring out you or the product in the image and makes the whole image less flat. I also like to place natural light sources in the frame to motivate the lighting. I also like to have an ambient light in addition to the key light. For this I often shoot a light directly into the ceiling and I'm bouncing the light off the ceiling, which in my case is a white ceiling that gives a soft spread of light that I can use to tune in the whole image. What types of light should you get? Anything that you can afford. Cheap sets on eBay can be really good. One great tip for anything you use is to shoot the light through some sort of diffusion. Like a thin white bed sheet can do the trick. It takes away some of the the strength of the light. So you might need to turn up the power on your light, but you get a much softer light doing this, and it will most likely improve your image by a lot. You also get softboxes for some lights, and they have diffusion built into the softbox. Lighting is difficult, and my best tip is to try as many different things as possible. It's kind of similar to miking an amp. You'll have to move the mic a lot to find the sweet spot. Same thing with lights, yeah. All the mentioned principles also goes for talking head situations like I'm doing right now. One thing that I see a lot of people doing wrong, if you have a flip out screen or a monitor placed on the side or above the camera, don't look at yourself in that monitor whilst talking. You should always talk to the lens, as the lens is the viewer of the video. When you're looking at the monitor, you are basically looking at yourself, yeah, and you're not connecting with the audience. Try to get as much B-roll as possible for the product you have in focus. Film from different angles in different lights. I also like to include B-roll that isn't directly attached to the product. I do this to create some variation in my videos and to maybe, if I'm lucky, evoke some feelings in the viewer. I often bring a small camera outside and film whatever is going on near my house or near my studio. If you learn anything from this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. I'm trying to reach 30 million subs on this channel, so I need some help getting there. Thank you, you are awesome. Okay, post-production, I edit and color grade my videos in DaVinci Resolve. You can get a free version of Resolve, which is a really nice place to start. I'm not going into detail on editing, other than it's best to start with syncing your videos with the audio that you hopefully recorded separately through an audio interface to a DAW. I have a powerful PC built for editing and color grading, but I often end up using my MacBook Pro on the go with headphones for audio mixing and for editing my videos. It's a first generation 13-inch MacBook Pro M1, and I use Austrian Audio High X65 headphones. They're really good. An important part for me is the color grading. With the cameras that I use, I often film in log mode. It's a way to capture the most information in the image, and right out of the camera it looks very flat and desaturated. With color grading, I bring it back to life, and you can just add contrast and saturation, but there are a whole lot of other things to tweak to get it right. You can use LUTs to get different looks. A LUT is sort of like a color preset, a lot more advanced than an Instagram filter. You can get free LUTs or buy LUT packs online. I often use the LUT provided from the camera manufacturer I'm using. This is giving me a neutral starting point, and I do some additional tweaking after applying that LUT. For some B-roll and my produced tracks, I often use a plugin called Filmbox. I've tried all the different film emulation plugins out there, and this is by far the best one that I've tried. I really like to do the film thing because I just love the film look. It's probably a nostalgia thing, but it makes me feel stuff, and hopefully it's doing the same for my viewers. There's a free version of Filmbox also if you want to try it. It's for Resolve only. And back to the thing about 4K. Film in 4K if you can, and if possible you should always try to deliver 4K to YouTube. That does not automatically mean that 4K is better than HD. For most viewing purposes, HD is enough, but YouTube is accepting a higher bitrate with 4K videos than HD, so you should upload in 4K. If your camera doesn't have 4K, film in HD and upscale in Resolve so you can upload in 4K. It's not about the pixels, it's about the information in the image. If you use Vimeo, for instance, HD is often enough because Vimeo isn't compressing the crap out of the HD videos like YouTube does. Yeah. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comment section. Thank you for watching and goodbye.